So we're gonna look at robbery and how wife, right, is used. So section 37. The Jamaican offense against a person act, or the larceny act rather, now states every person who a being armed with any offensive weapon. Let me. This is they're just spilling facts here, right? Being armed with any offensive weapon or instrument, right? Are being together with one other person. Therefore, if it's one person, it is larceny by intimidation. If it's two person, it is robbery. That is what I was saying about before. Right? Intent, right, to or more, robs or assaults with intent to rob. So you can rob, you can actually rob. Or you can assault the person with intent to rob. That would still be robbery. More of attempted robbery, more so, right? Robs any person and at the time of or immediately before or immediately after such robbery uses any personal violence to the person. Meaning, say, right, you can stab the person, then rob them, or you can stab the person while robbing them, or you rob the person, then stab them. Right? So all of these things can happen, right? So whether or not you inflict the harm immediately before, immediately within, or immediately with after, it must be immediate. Time constraints is key, right? They shall be guilty of a felony and on conviction therefore liable to imprisonment with hard labor for any term not exceeding 21 years. That is Jamaican law. So you need to know what's happening with your own laws, right? If you're not Jamaican, right? Looking at that. Section 8 of the Theft Act of Barbados states that robbery speaks to a person who steals any property and immediately before or after the time of doing so, and in order to do so, uses force on any person or puts or seeks to put any person in fear of being, right, then and there subjected to the force is guilty of robbery, right? So this is basically a rewording. It's similar to what we see in Jamaica, right? But what we're seeing in Jamaica, right, is that there must be assault, person put in fear, same thing, right? And we're talking about force immediately before or at the time of doing so. So in the Barbados, doing in actually inflicting wounds after is not a constituting it. Alright? And in Barbados, one person, a person. Look at the literal interpretation. This is the literal interpretation, literal rule. Right? We're looking at literal rule, right? So looking at literally, it says one person can constitute it. One person can constitute robbery. When in Jamaica, it's more than one. Because we have larceny via intimidation. Barbados doesn't have that. Barbados have theft. For the well, I think Barbados does have larceny, but in their robbery, right, we're gonna have this, right, a person. So it can't be a singular person. A person who assaults another with intent to rob. So that's really the assaulting. All right, the person who is guilty of robbery or assault is guilty for indictment, right? 15 years. So Jamaica is way more harsher on robbery than Barbados. Barbados is 15 years, Jamaica is 21 years, right? Not exceeding that, right? Well, I mean, technically the law here says that it is for 15 years, and Jamaica says not exceeding 21 years. So if you use the literal rule, you could even give the person like 5 years or 1 year or 2 months for robbery because it's not exceeding. It doesn't have to be. But in Barbados, it says 15 years. So I'm not sure about that. But it probably can be less than 15 years. Right? We're looking at wife now. Right? So it's something that we use to remember robbery. So wife, with the W stands for with violence or threat. So we're looking at that. So it represents the fact that robbery involves the use of violence, force, or intimidation by a person or persons. Right? I is the intent to steal. Right? It signifies the perpetrator must have animus furandi, the intent to steal. The mens rea for all of these for all cases on the not all cases but all situations on the offenses against the person, right, as it relates to stealing something, it's always animus furandi, intent to steal, right? F, from the person or presence of another. So you're taking it from the person itself or from the presence the immediate presence of that person, right? So you're going to be stealing from their property, meaning that you can go into their home and steal from the home, right? So that's not directly on the person, but it's within the person's presence, right? Or you can steal from an item from the person, him or herself. right? And you have E, affected by force or fear, right? So you taking the robbery. The robbery must be accomplished through the use of force, violence, or fear, right? So that's why we use wife, right? We're doing it with weapons or any type of instrument, right? We're looking at it with the intent to steal animus furundi from the person or in presence of another, right? And affected by force or fear. This is robbery, okay? Case law: Smith v. Desmond, 1965, R versus Hale, 1978, and the mens rea is given out in R.V. Robinson, 1977. And if you notice, R.V. Robinson is a theft case as well. Right? It's similar to a theft case. Right? So it's kind of used between the two. Right? So R.V. Robinson is actually used for the claim of right defense in theft, as well as it's used as a robbery, for robbery, right? So what's happening here? Do we know the case? I want you guys to go and look up these cases. In the interest of time, I think I'm going closer and closer to the time where I need to actually like start the past papers, so I don't, cut off. So let's go to burglary section 39 of the Licensing Act. Here now, this is my problem with the Burglary Act now. Jamaica says that it must be in the night, meaning that if you do not rob the house in the night, it is robbery. If it is in the day, it is robbery. If it is at night, then it's burglary. See how that's interesting? You see how that was probably not supposed to be there? See how interesting this legislation is? Alright. See how that looks weird, Burglary only occurs in Jamaica at night. Clearly, that's what's happening. So if the person breaks and enters a dwelling house of another with intent to commit a felony therein, alright, or breaks out of the dwelling house of another having A, entered such dwelling with intent to commit a felony therein, or committed any felony, right, in such dwelling house, right? No, this is weird now, right? So shall be guilty of felony, a felony called burglary, and on conviction thereof, right? No, specifically, no, if you burgle, I like the word burgle. I don't even know if it's an actual word, but if you commit, I'm gonna say burgle, cause it sounds crazy, right? So if you burgle in Jamaica, you are going to have an imprisonment, right? Or you are liable for imprisonment not exceeding 21 years. Same thing for robbery, right? But if you burgle and rape, that's an imprisonment for life. Life imprisonment if you burgle and happen to, rape, right? Then that's life. But if you burgle and happen to not rape, right? Then up to 21 years. Okay? So that's what's happening here in this act. For section 24 of the Theft Act of Barbados, we're stating here, right? Burglary, a person who enters any building. Notice, that burglary. You see, this is so crazy though, because it seems that Jamaica is safer than Barbados because burglary only happens at night in Jamaica, right? But burglary happens at any time in Barbados. That's interesting, right? So a person enters a building or as a trespasser with the intent to commit an offense, as mentioned in subsection 2, right? Having entered any building as a trespasser, right? Steals or attempts to steal anything in the building, or inflicts or attempts to inflict any on any person in the building any grievous bodily harm. So looking at that, hold on. So you're telling me that Barbados is less strict with robbery, but more strict with burglary, because that's up to, it's less strict with burglary actually. It's more strict with burglary actually. So here we have 20 years, right? With robbery it was 15, right? And here we have 20 years here. The offense retained a subsection, so stealing from the building, causing any harm to the person in the building, or assaulting a woman in the building, right? Committing burglary, not burglary, buggery, as anything like that, whether with a man, person, or animal, unlawfully damaging or destroying the building or anything in the building, right? Looking at those type of stuff, right? But in Jamaica, now, if you sexual assault a woman, especially rape a woman while you're burgling at night, because only night burglary happen, right? Then you are going to prison. Well, you are liable to go to prison for life. But Barbados doesn't have that. It's up to 20 years, right? So let's look at this now. Case law. Actus Reus is set out in R.V. Collins, and the mens rea set out in Jones and Smith, right? Well, R.V. Collins and R.V. Hughes has it, right? So what happened in R.V. Collins? Anyone? So in R.V. Collins, right, the accused climbed naked up a ladder, right, to the bedroom of a girl he knew slightly, intending to have sexual intercourse with her, right? It was in the middle of the night, therefore it would be okay if it's probably a Jamaican case since it was in the middle of the night. I'm not sure if it's a Jamaican case, but it was in the middle of the night, right? If it was in the day in Jamaica, no, it wouldn't be burglary, it would be robbery, right? And the girl was asleep in bed, right? When she saw the accused at the window, she jumped out, right, to the conclusion that he was her boyfriend and invited him in the room. They had sexual intercourse. She became suspicious and turned on the lights and discovered it was not her boyfriend. Oh my, right? The accused was charged with burglary and intent to commit rape. He was convicted and appealed, right? So this conviction was reversed, however. He might have intended to commit rape, but his belief that his girlfriend welcomed him into the home, right, was an honest one, therefore it wasn't burglary. He might have tried to rape, but he didn't burgle, right? That's what we're saying. So she was asleep though, it was at night actually. So looking at here now, he tried to rape, but he didn't burgle. Does that make it any better? I don't think it does. I don't think that makes the case any better. So looking at the fact that we have a building, it has to be a building, you have to be a trespasser on the building, those type of things are set out, right? Awareness of being a trespasser. Let's look at R.V. Smith and Jones. Two boys decided to steal 2 television sets from the house of the father of one of the boys, right? They entered the house with that intent to steal, right? So the father, not knowing who had done it, right, reported the theft to the police. All at the trial, right, the father gave evidence to the effect that he had given his son unreserved permission to enter his house. Following Collins, it might appear that the son could not have been committed the necessary trespass for burglary. Both were convicted of burglary and appealed. Held they had correctly been found guilty for burglary, as if you go in intending to steal, that's the mens rea animus furandi intending to steal, then you have entered for burglary, right? Then your entry is burglary. So you could look at that. So you specifically, it doesn't matter, right? It could have been, okay, technically it could have been your own, no, I don't think it could have been your own house, no. It could have been your parents' house, right? Just like what happened in R versus Smith and Jones, right? You could have been the person living in the house. Once you enter the house with the intent to steal, burglary, right? Me, personally, though, business, right? If you relate to the persons inside, you went in the house with the intention to what? To steal. That's burglary, right? But not in daybreak, though, in Jamaica, because that would be robbery. You have to do it at night in Jamaica. So you see, after like 6 o'clock, after the sun go down, then you can burgle, right? I'm afraid you cannot burgle, right, in morning hours. I'm so sorry, this is so crazy, but you can't burgle in Jamaica in morning hours, but I guess so. The trespass is necessary for burglary, right? So you need to have trespassing, right? And it must be in a building, right? So those 2 things are very important as it relates to burglary. But as Jamaica says, at night, therefore, if it's in the day, it would be not robbery, right? For Barbados, burglary happen all around, so you guys have to watch yourselves. Alright? But yeah, so that's what we have there.